watching another show of BWTMONLINE television. Today we have a special guest. You asked for him, you begged for him, you kept telling me, get the bomber on, you can't deliver the bomber. I have with me tonight the bomber, Tony Bellew. Good evening, Tony.
Good evening, guys. Thanks for having me, and it's great to finally get on here.
Okay, Tony. First question. Who are you?
I am a lunatic scouser from Liverpool. Just happens to punch people in the face for a living and be a world-ranked cruiserweight boxer.
Okay, so what's your record, Tony? For those who don't know who you are.
It's funny because I'd never really looked into my record. I think it's 23 wins, 2 defeats in World Championship fights, and 1 draw with about 14 knockouts. Am I being generous? 15 knockouts? I don't know.
Okay, good. One of the things I think you may or may not know about when I do interviews, I talk to people, I try and make it more of a conversation. So there's no scripts, there's no pieces of paper. I haven't sat down and thought about what I'm going to say. It's rather off the cuff. But the one question I have about you is, who actually is Tony Bellew? Because I've seen different faces of you. I've seen Tony Bellew, the guy that kicked off with Nathan Cleverly. I've seen Tony Bellew, the guy who's very emotional in the ring. I've seen Tony Bellew, the guy that's on Sky commentary team talking lots of sense. I've then seen Tony Bellew, in other situations where I think, well, that's a bit odd. So, who are you in essence?
That's all me, mate. That is all me. It depends on which buttons are pushed and which kind of things are said to me to provoke what the responses that happen with stuff like that. So ultimately, I'm me. I never try and hide behind anything or try and be someone that I'm not. Like I say, they're just different parts of me on different occasions and days. The one thing about this is that I just always try and be true to myself. So, I've done that throughout my career. I can be portrayed by the media sometimes as a bit of a lunatic, a bit of a head case. I understand. I can see why some people think I'm nuts. And then I can also, come across as quite... well, after the Sky Sports box office build up with the Cleverly thing, I think people have seen a humorous side to me, maybe a little bit more. And ultimately, I'm just a father who's raising 3 kids and is a family man with 1 child, trying to actually walk in on this interview. What's the matter, Mosh?
Make it. That's it. That's what we like, natural. So, I know the media would put you down as a lunatic. I actually don't. I actually think you're just a guy that wants to get on in life, do what he wants to do, but along the way, as you say, certain buttons are pushed. And certain people come across our pathways which bring out sometimes the bestness and sometimes the worstness. In one occasion we had, and I have to say, I'm being very honest here, watching your career, when people say Tony Bellew, the first thing, fortunately or unfortunately, the first thing that comes to my mind is that interview, that situation at the O2 when you were, I think it was the O2 when you were weight trained to fight Nathan Cleverly. And it all kicked off. Because, and you rightly so said that you basically told us, you said, look, it was Cleverly that started this off. It wasn't me. It was actually Nathan Cleverly. Go back and listen to the tape. But people don't remember that. People remember you jumping up and calling him a rat. Now, that...
Yeah, they always do.
They always do. But, I've thought this out. And it's almost like the British fans want a character. They're begging for a character. But yet when they get a character, they don't know what to do with him.
They always hate. Listen, there's always in boxing, especially more other than most sports. I'd say football kind of needs it sometimes when the games are dull, but in most sports you need a good guy and you need a guy, and you need a villain, you need a hero. So I just seen the villain role just seems to fall on me all the time. I think it's going to happen a lot less going forward. Talking about that interview, that crazy press conference that time. It's quite simple. I'd lost, I think it was 16 to 20 pounds in 16 hours. hadn't eaten in just under just nearly 48 hours. I think it was 36 hours. I'd been in everything from saunas to trains to planes to riding bikes to it was just like it was a nightmare episode of planes, trains, automobiles with a sweatsuit on. That was the best way of saying it. And then I went into a press conference and had a young chap say that he would take me in a car park right now and deal with me there and then. So, hence the jumping out the seat and behaving like a lunatic. So ultimately, it's like I say, it's the most of the time with me, it's responses and reactions. And I think there are also reactions that 90% of the normal people in this would make it if posed with the same problems. It's just people find it funny to see that someone has behaved on national television the way that they would behave if this is put in the same situation. They're like, well, this guy's on TV. He shouldn't really behave like that, but I'd behave like that if it was me on TV. Well, that's the difference with me. I'll behave exactly on TV as the same way I would if I was sitting in the street and someone said to me, they'd take me in a car park right now. I'd behave the exact same way. So, and they're the kind of things I think that's what TV kind of likes me, hates me, whatever it is. I don't really know.
But hold on. This whole I'll take you around in the car park and I'll do X, Y, and Z to you. That statement there and your response to it it blew the whole fight up. It made the fight, people want to tune in and see that. Nobody wants, Tony, let's be honest, nobody wants to watch two guys sit in a press conference and say, yeah, I'm going to win the fight. And the other guy and say, yeah, I'm going to give it the best. Nobody wants to see that. People want to see two guys kick off. That's what it's about. That's why we're into the sport of boxing. So why is there an issue? I don't get it.
I agree, but then, it's the whole dance that we have to represent the sport in the right way. And I'm all for that too. I try my best to come across in the right way. You see, I struggle with the concept that I have fans or are looking up to me and stuff like that. I struggle with that concept because to me, I'm just a guy who has a fight and it just so happens to be my job. I struggle with the concept of thinking that I still don't believe it. Kids look up to me or people look up to me in some kind of way. I can't grasp that. So that it might be my biggest downfall. It might be, I don't know what, but I can't get my head around that. So I'll always continue to behave the way I'm supposed to behave.
And you can only do what you know. I mean, but it's the thing that you're trying to make boxers into politicians. I mean, you're a boxer. You're paid to render another person unconscious. So why are people trying to turn you into politicians? I'm not saying you can't look smart. I'm not saying you can't articulate yourself.
Yeah.
But to turn you into a politician.
I do look at someone like Vladimir Klitschko and the way they conduct themselves, and I do really admire it. But like I say, he's just a very, very patient man who can deal with things a lot better than me. He might, I don't know, is it the way he's raised, the way, I don't know what it is, but I think it's fantastic the way Vladimir Klitschko conducts himself. But don't get me wrong, if someone like a Sean Briggs-esque person came into a press conference and behaved like that with me, then I'm sorry to say we would be having that kind of, we would be boxing in the press conference more than likely. So everybody's different. If everybody in the world would be a boring place. So
absolutely,
everyone different strokes for different
folks. Absolutely. Now this idea of the media persona of you being the hard man, the guy that if you tell him if you get in a car park, he'll come and have a fight with you. That persona, because I can understand the guy that has to sell tickets for people to watch him fight. I understand that. That's detached from the family man, right? There's a detachment there.
Yeah.
Now, in your mind, is there a part where you draw a line, or is that just, you know what, I'm like that in the ring and I'm out like that outside the ring?
Yeah, number one, I'm not a tough guy. I never portray myself as being like a tough guy. Ultimately, I'm a family man. But listen, if I'm challenged in any kind of way, I'm going to move away from one. So regardless of how, whatever situation confronts me, I'm never going to change. So if that happens to be in a street, in a boxing ring, in a press conference, in a weigh-in, I'm never gonna. I'll try and avoid it. But if it's put to me in a certain way where I can't avoid, then I'm not gonna walk away. Simple as that. I'm a man, and I will refuse to walk away from anything that is put to me.
Okay, so let's move on a bit. Another
Okay.
very fascinating thing about you is that you've been on Sky Sports before you became a pundit, and they will say X, Y, and Z about Tony Bellew. Now you're in the studio, and you're having to look the same people that were saying X, Y, and Z about you in your career in their face. Do you turn around to Jim Watt and say to him, right, you were saying crap about me, X, Y, and Z when I was fighting. Now I'm here in the studio. Now say it to my face. Does that happen?
I tend not to be totally honest. When I've looked back and looked through my fights, I tend to push mute on the commentary.
This is reckless boxing. This is reckless boxing from Bellew. Do you hear that? Don't you?
I'm sure I make mistakes on some fights that I've commentated on sometimes. So I don't know. Some things I agree with, some things I disagree with. But like I say, everybody's different, and every person sees something different in a fight. So if they're commentating on my fight or if they're commentating on another fight, I may not agree with them, but I also may see the points that they're getting. Not just have different one. On my fight, I don't think. Well, yeah, I have been absolutely slated a couple of times when I think back. So sometimes I think back and think I was given a good hammering for the Edison Miranda fight for taking me time too much and being disciplined. But when I look back at that fight, I mean, I'd have got an absolute hammering if I'd have got knocked clean out of him if I'd have rushed into one of his punches. So I look at it from my point of view is I took me time, I got the job done, and I'm the one whose ass is on the line, and I'm the one who takes the punches. So I'll decide when it's right to take someone apart, and I'll decide when it's right to take someone out. Not a commentator. But you know, ultimately, they've got a job to do. Them guys, and 90 do a job. It's just, you know, everyone, we're all human, and they're prone to make mistakes. Just like I'm prone to make mistakes in a boxing ring, doing a commentary role. You know, no one can be right all the time. So.
Okay.
That would be opinion on that.
The next question
sometimes I'd like to strangle a commentator, yes. Would, and I'm sure fighters would love to strangle me sometimes for being a commentator, so that's an answer to your question.
Okay, the next question along those lines are, see, it's funny because you can look at things from like before you fought Stevenson. You know, you said, obviously as a fighter, nobody goes into a fight saying, I'm going to get beat, he's the biggest puncher in the division, blah-de-blah-de-blah. You don't do that. You say to yourself, you back yourself. Because if you don't back yourself, who's going to back you? So you sitting in a commentary position saying, well, you know what, you don't do this to get Stevenson, you don't do that to Stevenson, you don't do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, and this is how I'm going to take him out. Then you yourself have to step in that ring and sort of deliver on what you've said. Does that put you in a scenario or situation that's sticky because you're like, well, you said you were going to do this, but yet now you've...
No, not really, because what happens is I'd studied him for many months, and I'd watched how he fought and the things he does, and then I'd seen him lose, I'd seen him do the mistakes that he makes, the mistakes he still makes now, and I look back, I'd say my biggest regret was not just trying to put it on him and go for the kill, because I do believe to this day if I could nail him and hit him, I could have hit him and knocked him out, because I think he has the strongest chin. He's not the bravest, but on the other hand, the things that I anticipated how hard he'd punch, and so I anticipated that didn't shock me. The thing that shocked me in that fight was how hard he actually was to hit. He's very, very hard to hit. He's extremely elusive in the first half of the fight. I wouldn't know about the second half because I didn't make it there. But the first half of the fight, he's extremely elusive. The south stance makes him even smaller than he is than his actual height is that represents him. He has got devastating power without a shadow of a doubt. I nailed him to the body once or twice in the fight. He walked onto a right hook. I seen it. He's just, when he takes any kind of decent shot to the head or the body, he just takes a second to gather himself. think it was the third round. He gave me an absolute hide. He hit me harder in the third round than he did when he stopped me. He hit me on the skull in the third round. Very, very powerful shot. Then he hit me in the ribs, cracked me ribs. I came out for the fourth round. I always remember Dave Caldwell was in my corner. He slapped me on the leg and he said, "That was a fantastic round. Now go and do it again." And I looked back at him and he said, I've spoke to him since, and he says to me, "You needed G'ing up in that round." And Dave was the assistant trainer then, and he never really spoke, but he said, "You needed G'ing up because you just took a hide." And so he said, "That was my kind of way to give you that." And the fourth round was, I think 2 judges gave me that round of the fight. I dropped him. I caught him round the back of the head, and he goes over. He stood as a slip, but I knew it was a knockdown because, see, the thing with Adonis Stevenson is what makes him very good is he knows he's vulnerable. He doesn't believe like he's Superman. I know he posed this Superman thing and stuff. The most important thing about him, he knows he can be hurt. He knows he can be knocked out because it's happened to him. So he fights with, I don't know, it's the defensive side of him that is really, really special, because he'll make you fall like mistakes because he knows he's actually scared of getting hit with a big shot. Like I say, he knows he can lose. And that for me was his biggest asset, because I couldn't hit him all night. I only hit him with one right hand up the top to the head once. I tried going to the body. My game plan was basically to draw him into the second half of the fight and then press and try and stop him within the last 4 or 5 rounds. I was going to press and go non-stop. It's just a shame I didn't get a chance to get there. But I still believe to this day, the game plan would have worked. I just look back on it and it disappoints me that I never got there, because had I have got there, I definitely believe he will gas down the stretch of fights, because he has so much. He throws an awful lot of counter power punches that my plan, I think he tires in the second half of fights. I really do, which he has shown in the Andres von fight recently.
And the Beacon fight.
He's shown, he went down twice late on in that fight. He's in control for the first 8-10 rounds of that fight. Really, he's dominating. He's dropping from far when he pleases. Basically done the same against Sakio Bika. He's really, people will get a shock at how hard he is to hit. Like I say, I think he'll become easier to hit the later it goes in fights. That for me is the biggest difference between him and Kovalev. I believe with him and Kovalev, it could be whoever lands first. They're both that powerful.
Yeah.
But for me, the difference could possibly be that Kovalev is still in that Superman mode. He believes nothing can hit him. He believes nobody could put him down. He believes he can take any kind of punch. It's only when a fighter gets really hurt, knocked out, or really dropped heavily that they start to worry about defense. I remember fighting Oval McKenzie. I mean, I had knockdowns before I fought Oval McKenzie, but they weren't really knockdowns. They were balance issues. There was one hit me on the chest and I went down. I must have had a weak nipple or something. But I really started to focus on defense with boxing once I fought Oval McKenzie the first time, because it makes you then realise that, listen, when them 10-ounce gloves go hit on the button, your lights can get put out. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened with Adonis Stevenson. He was blowing away everybody, and then he came across Darnell Boone. He got just caught with a freaky shot, a right hand knock clean out, stopped, and that's what made him the fighter he is today. And he is exceptional. I might not like the guy as a person, but as a fighter, he's outstanding. I really do think he's magnificent, and that's why I keep changing. I haven't changed really between him and Kovalev, but the thing with Kovalev is he hasn't been through that yet. I don't think anybody's hit him where he's thought, right, I better be careful because the next one could put me out.
Yeah.
Kovalev is still kind of in that mode where, like, he's literally Ivan Drago come back alive at 12 stone 7. He walks through everything. He doesn't care if he will take one to give one, but it's going to get to his career where someone hits him and ultimately he's going to go, wow, whoa, I need to be a bit smarter about the way I attack this guy, or this guy's going to render me unconscious too. So I think that will be the difference between Adonis Stevenson and Sergey Kovalev. And also, I still actually rate him a little bit high because just purely on the work on what he done to Chad Dawson.
Yeah.
I really do. I mean, no one has ever done that to Chad Dawson before. It was the manner of the defeat. Now I know Kovalev has gone on to absolutely bulldoze Jean Pascal, and he dominated Bernard Hopkins. But let's just remember that Chad Dawson dominated Bernard Hopkins twice, and a lot of goods have dominated Bernard Hopkins, albeit the later version of Bernard Hopkins. But Chad Dawson dominated him, and Adonis Stevenson just went in and took him out in one round. That's all it took to take apart the best light heavyweight, possibly of our generation. I'd say Chad Dawson is the best light heavyweight, I would say, of the last 6-7 years, maybe.
Where'd you put Roy Jones?
Oh, I think Roy Jones is probably the best light heavyweight ever of all time. But what he's done, the damaging things that he's done to his, I mean, Roy Jones Jr. or Archie Moore, I would say.
Yeah, Archie Moore, of course.
Archie Moore was an amazing fighter, but Roy Jones Jr., for the skills he possessed, you know what people need to remember when it comes to Jones? If Roy Jones Jr. walks from the game after he defeats John Ruiz, he probably goes down as one of the greatest fighters that have ever lived. And he stakes a claim after he beats John Ruiz as possibly the greatest fighter who ever lived. People should remember that it's only since the Tarver fight that he's tarnished his legacy, and he's done that himself because, like I say, Roy could have just walked away, went into the sunset with hundreds of millions after the Ruiz fight, and people would have argued the case strongly for him to be known as the greatest fighter ever. They really would have, and I would have been one of them because I was his biggest fan. I was studying Roy Jones 15, 20 years ago, admiring what this guy was doing and thinking, geez, this guy is one of the most special things I've ever seen. I remember him getting the Olympics. So, like I say, if he walks away after the Ruiz, makes a strong case he's going down as the greatest fighter of all time.
Okay, so let's talk about back to Tony Bellew and your career now as a cruiserweight. What can you take away from the defeat to Stevenson, the win against Bellew, against Cleverly? So I don't want to use his, I'll stop using his name. Cleverly.
No, yeah, well, that's okay. It's cool.
And yeah, what can you take away from that now? And as now you're a cruiserweight, and you've now beaten Nathan Cleverly, who a lot of people would say now, myself included, would say, well, he was a blown up light heavyweight, right?
Yeah.
But and you would say, well, he was saying he was the best athlete, best conditioned athlete compared to you, and you out hustled him and outdone him. So, you know, where does that kind of put you now in terms of the cruiserweight picture with Marco Huck and the rest?
The cruiser. Well, first of all, my light heavyweight career was one that I'm happy with. I mean, I think I'm crazy in how I made that weight so many times and how I done it. I look back and think, Jesus, I don't know how. Excuse me. Ultimately, I mean, it's really tough because when I first turned professional, I think I was 27, and I just wanted to get up the rankings as fast as possible, and I thought that I could get myself a world title fight within like 2 years of being a professional. I wanted to be rushed through the pro game because I felt my style always suited the pro game. Like I said, I defeated really good fighters. The first time Cleverly, I could have got that decision. It was one of them fights where it could have went either way. I thought I'd done enough. You know, he thought he'd done enough and he got the decision. But what people forget is that was a world title fight and that was my 16th fight. I could have been a world champion in my 16th fight. I was a British and Commonwealth champion within 12 fights. Every single fight I've fought since my 12th professional fight has been a 12-round contest. I think I've now fought 14 12-round contests on the spin. 14 title fights on the spin. And for somebody with the experience of only 12 fights to then fight, from your 12th fight to fight the next 14 fights as title fights, it is kind of... I don't know, it's something that gets overlooked from me. I'm too busy. I always like to to fight a lot of fights, and so I moved to Matchroom because, like I said, I wanted to be busy. I wanted to be all the time. And it is what it is. Like I said, I look back at my light heavyweight career, and I'm disappointed with the final outcome because I ultimately wanted to win a world title. Ultimately, if I'm being selfish and thinking about myself, I believe I've already won a world title. I just didn't get the decision. So that was that fight. I then moved on, tried to regroup, focused towards the number one in the division, because once I thought I'd proven that I was world class at that level, I wanted to then face the best fighter in the division, who was Chad Dawson. Just my luck, he gets knocked out by a crazy midget puncher. I don't know, it's been an eventful. I've crammed an awful lot of experience into 26 fights, but ultimately I have no regrets, because, like I say, it's got me to the point of where I'm at now. I've learned as I've gone through this program. Like I say, it's such an awful lot crammed into such a short period of time, and I'm happy with where I'm at, and I'm happy with how I've got here. I've moved up to cruiserweight because, before fighting Adonis Stevenson, I'll tell you now, that was the hardest it ever got to make weight. I really struggled to make weight for the first Isaac Chilemba fight. That was, I don't know what it was. I mean, I'd gone through an awful lot. My mother-in-law had been in a coma for 3 weeks before that fight. The first fight with Isaac Chilemba, we had problems at home. There was just so many things going on. I was on antibiotics going into the fight, but I wanted the fight to go ahead because it was the WBC final eliminator, and it was just so important. So if I got in the ring that night, don't get me wrong, struggling with weight, whatever, won 6 rounds, and then the arse fell out of me for the next 6, and I just couldn't. I still don't remember leaving the ring that night. I was that drained and that worn out. I don't remember leaving the ring. I don't remember the shenanigans that went on in the changing rooms after the fight, because I'm told I behaved and said some stupid things like a lunatic. I don't remember them. And you see, in changing rooms like mine, I only have very close, trusted people with me. So they told me later on what the things that had gone on, things I'd said, and I didn't even remember them myself. So I look back at the things that have happened at light heavyweight, and although I'm gutted that I didn't get to win a world title, I'm happy the experiences that I've been through. Big title fights I'm fought on HBO. I've fought the best fighter in the world at light heavyweight. I've came up short. I've moved up in weight now. I feel like I've definitely took the power with me. The first 2 fights, the Brudov fight, he's basically a gatekeeper towards world honours. I've dealt with him later than I wanted to. Walked onto a right hand like a clown. Got carried away with my own success again. But took that, I'm happy, because Brudov had a couple of knockouts on his record and was, considered, I'm not saying he's the best cruiserweight in the world, he's far from it, but he beats people who aren't world class at that level. He gets by. And I goes from him to Julio Cesar dos Santos. He put me and Cleverly on the bill so we could drum up some kind of interest. Dos Santos, just a guy who hadn't been stopped, known as a guy on the floor, really tough. I'll be totally honest, I fully expected it to go 12 rounds because he took Kucha, the really strong, I think, Ukrainian. He took him 12 rounds. So I expected 12 rounds. The left hook landed, that got that job done in the 5th. And then we moved on to the Cleverly fight, the big, well-hyped rematch. For me, I learned an awful lot more about myself in the build-up to that fight than I did any other fight, mainly. I mean, I learned a lot about myself in the Stevenson fight because I had to deal with upsets, the loss and stuff like that. But in the Cleverly rematch, it was... There's a pro. I've won the second fight easy. The first Old McKenzie fight, I made absolute war out of it. I came through that. The first Chilemba fight, I nearly blew it because I'd won 6 rounds, and then, in my opinion, I maybe won 6 rounds early, first 6, and then I had a real bad 6 round. I still think, it was really close, ends up a draw. I fight him in a rematch and beats him easy, hands down. And then it came to the Cleverly fight, whereas that was so close, the first fight. The rematch comes around, a lot more needle, a lot more personal, a lot more at stake. Both of us said a lot of things, and then he turns up as if he just didn't want to know on the night. So that was just the most disappointing way. I mean, listen, I couldn't... one thing about me is I do open my mouth and I do say things and I do talk, but ultimately I say what I want to do or what I believe I'm going to do, and I did really 100% believe I was going to knock Nick Cleverly out, and I still believe to this day. I go into the fight and looking at him, studying him. I watched him against Kovalev. I'd watched him against every single fight, and anyone can look back at this. Every single fight Nathan Cleverly has ever had in his career, besides me, he's always gone on the front foot and pressured the guy and fought and traded. Now, every single fight, bar me, he fights the same way every single time. I swear to God, you couldn't.
I know, I've seen it.
I have never, I mean, this is just unfucking...
Action replay, isn't it?
Yes, I swear, every fight is the exact same. So I was anticipating, I'll be honest, a war. Because I don't think he's got a bad chin. I think he's actually got a good chin. Good shot. I've heard the stories about him sparring with Derek Chisora, Tyson Fury, Dillian White, and holding his own. So I do believe he's got a good chin. I just believe he fought Sergey Kovalev, and I wouldn't say is worried about his chin. What I would say is he got caught in the second to me off a short left hook, and he just thought, right, I felt that one to me boots and just thought,
nah.
And I could not. I'd be totally honest, I thought when I was in the fight, it got to like 6 or 7. Yeah, okay, so listen, Daddy's doing an interview, so you have to take this big house over there, please. Don't give that to Mummy, please. Daddy's got to do an interview. Good boy. Go on, go and give it to Mummy. Good boy. Sorry.
Okay.
So, the best thing I could say is I believe he took a shot and just thought to himself, I'm not getting knocked out off this guy, because getting knocked out off me would have, in my opinion, would have meant the end of his career. And he can come back, he can repackage himself, remodel himself and say he was not a cruiserweight or whatever he could do. And that's pretty what he done. It got to the 7th round and I was like, you've got to be shitting me. He's running. I just can't believe this for the life of me. He's doing it.
But you know why, don't you?
And they just sold the team. Just told me, Dave just said, listen, I don't know. Well, I don't know ultimately why. I mean, there was nothing wrong with it. I know there was nothing wrong with his right hand, because Ambrose Mendy had gone into the changing room after him and asked him if there's something wrong with the right hand immediately after. No, stop pushing me back. So ultimately, I mean, my corner told me, Dave just said, listen, he's not going to engage, so just push him back to the ropes and just outwork him. That's what you're going to have to do. You're just going to have to win ugly. And I was like, this is not the way I wanted to win. I'll be totally honest. I was prepared that night for the fight in my life, because I think he has got a good chin. I know he's very fit. I know he's got a fantastic work rate. And I just thought, if he takes what I can hit him with, if he takes what I hit him for an absolute war like the first fight, the only was I was dead at the weight, but that cruiserweight, I'm never ever going to gas. I will never tire. I will not stop. I'm always fit. And for what should have been a great fight, it was a great disappointment for me. I'm happy I got the win. I'm really over the moon I won, because I won clearly. But ultimately, I wanted it to be an absolute trench war, if I'm totally honest. And I wanted to put him asleep in about 9-10 rounds of an absolute war. And I believe that was going to happen. And I believe he thinks it was going to happen as well, hence why he chose to do what he tactically done.
But he admitted, I recently watched an interview with him, and he admitted it was for money. It's financial reasons. He said, I took on Tony Bellew because it's for money. It was a big fight. I lost to Kovalev, so I thought, you know what?
Yeah, I've seen the interview.
Yeah, so a person with that sort of mentality, then you know what they're up against. They know what they're in. So even if I lose to him, well, I can come back down and say, well, I'm a light heavyweight. I'm not really a cruiserweight. So doesn't it make your victory feel sort of hollow? Because it's like you got the man you wanted.
It does and it doesn't. It does because it does because of what he's saying. But then ultimately, I look at it as in, I know he doesn't like me, and I know it will deep down, it will hurt him to lose to me, and it will hurt him to lose to me in a far more one-sided fight than our first fight was. So, I mean, I don't know what the judge you have over him have been smoking, But whatever I'd like to pass on to some of the relatives that I have. But like that, it was just a one-sided fight, and only one guy came to fight. So I know it will hurt him that way that he's lost to me, but ultimately he'll always, I don't know, he'll find a way to repackage himself and remodel himself. Listen, he's obviously a bright individual. He's got a maths degree, if you didn't know. So he's got a future. He's got a future after boxing. But ultimately, boxing's the only thing I've got, and it's the only thing I know. So I'm going to keep going until I possibly can.
And the final thing I want to, in terms of Nathan Cleverly, do you think that maybe you should have a third one, a straightener on the cobblers with Cleverly? Do you think that would help?
I don't think it'd help, no, because I think I'd end up in jail, and if I end up, I've got no one to raise my kids with, and they don't fear them or they fear the father.
I couldn't resist that. I had to say that. I'm sorry, I just had to say it was... I heard it somewhere the other day and I thought it was hilarious, so I just thought I'd say it now. Okay, back to seriousness now. Okay, so you're cruiserweight. You heard that Marco Huck has now joined with Bermain Stavern's trainer, Don House. He's
been looking for a new trainer for quite a while. I know he's spent little stints with Adam Booth. He's spent stints with Jimmy Montoya. Mm-hmm. So I do look at what he's doing and where he's going and the places he's spending his time at. I think the reason he's going with Stavern is because he's linked up women. And I'm not too sure if he signed with Heyman as a manager, but Stavern, I'm sure, has got links with Heyman too. And it's all being basically kept in-house and they're doing what they're doing. But for me, Hook just handpicks his opponents when he sees fit, really. And I'll be totally honest, I've got no intentions of going to Germany whatsoever. Okay. I mean, you'd have to get a knockout to get a draw in Germany. So, I could render someone unconscious and I'm not going to be world champion. It's as simple as that in Germany. So I have no intention of going to Germany. I don't know. I mean, is Russia any different? I don't know. The only goal left in this boxing game is to become world champion. That's all I'm in for. I just want to become world champion. I believe I can do it. I believe I'm in I'd say, even though you've got two outstanding special fighters at light heavyweight, who are real special kings of the division, outstanding talents in Kovalev and Stevenson. At cruiserweight, you have a much more full and tougher division. There's killers all over the division. There's Kudryashov. Then you have, your gatekeepers are even dangerous. Your Afalabis are still dangerous men. Your Ramirez is a dangerous man. Then you get to your champions, and I'm not too sure where you'd start. I would personally start at Gregory Zod. Then I would go Lebedev. Then I would go Hook. Then I would go Hernandez, purely based on the ways of how hard they are to beat.
What about Guillermo Jones? Is he still in the... What's he got heavyweight?
Guillermo Jones was the champion because he failed another drug test, didn't he, after the Lebedev fight? So he got completely stripped, which is a disgrace in himself because that's the second one he's failed. And for me, Guillermo Jones was one of the best cruiserweights in the world. Very, very skilled fighter, very underrated. I don't know why the hell he's taking drugs, because he must be the absolutely worst looking shaped athlete for drugs I have ever seen. So I don't know what drugs he was taking. I mean, I don't think it was marijuana he fell for. I actually think it was a steroid.
You got to wonder.
Yeah, because listen, the guy looked like he'd been on the ale for about 6 months and living in a chippy. So, and then he gets in the ring and he's so talented. And so Jones is a brilliant fighter, definitely one of the most skilled, talented cruiserweights in the world. So, like I said, very, very disappointed he failed that second drug test, because I know he failed the drug test when I think he drew it or he defeated Johnny Nelson. He failed the drug test then, and then he failed another one after the Lebedev fight, which for me, any drug cheats in boxing, failing for steroid, I will say this and I'll go on record, any boxer failing a drug test for PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, should be banned immediately from the sport.
Absolutely.
They should never be allowed back in a boxing ring, because what you've got to understand is we put our lives on the line with that boxing ring. So the worst case scenario is another fighter dies in the ring. Now, how could you live with yourself if you killed a fellow man and you've been taking performance enhancing drugs and he hadn't? Is that classed as murder? Because, in my book, it is, and you should be locked up for life. So, this performance enhancing, this drugs has got to stop in boxing. And the way to send a message is if you're caught for taking performance enhancing drugs, you're banned for life. Simple as that. No second chances.
Absolutely.
No messing around. Because lives are at risk. Listen, this ain't an Olympic race. You ain't running on a track. You are punching another man in the head until you see blood. Simple as that. Or until he says no more.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the most dangerous sports in the world. Combat sports, you should be banned for life.
Yeah, but Tony, you know and I know there are a lot of people in this sport that are taking this stuff and are not going to get pulled up around because there's too much money involved. So, there are a lot of people making a lot of money off for certain fighters that, so that's not, I can't see that happening.
There is, and models and people's models are being bought by the money that's being involved. Basically, people lose the models and lose the respect for the game by taking these drugs, because basically money is everything. Money is king. Well, you can't put a price on a life, and a life can be lost in a boxing ring because a guy's on drugs. It's so dangerous.
It's not fair. It's not right.
Touch wood, it ain't happened yet. I hope to the Lord it never does happen, but this drug issue has got to be addressed, and it has to be a very firm warning to make an example of someone. Just make an example of somebody.
Okay, finally, to wrap this all up, I want to talk to you about social media, and not so much your Twitter, because I guess everyone can ask you about your Twitter, and you're there to be found. I want to ask you whether you watch YouTube videos. Do you watch YouTube? Do you watch any YouTube boxing channels? If so, what are the type of videos do you watch in terms of boxing videos?
Boxing videos, I study fighters. I look at a lot of great old fights through YouTube. I love watching boxing. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes ultimately, I love boxing. I love to talk about boxing. I love to watch boxing. So that's the main things that I consider things like YouTube. When it comes to social media, my Twitter, I'll be totally honest. The reason why I ended up on Twitter wasn't really for me. And when it came out, it took me a few years to get onto it. I swore I wouldn't. But I basically got on Twitter to try and get the first Cleverly fight, the truth be known, because when Bramer had pulled out, I think I joined maybe that week or within a few days before. And I remember speaking to Frank, and Frank saying, I don't think you should take this fight right now. We can build this up. And I was like, well, I'll take it to Twitter, because I know you ain't got a opponent. And Bramer had pulled out, and then it led from there, the whole Twitter thing. So I'm not really one for social media, but Jesus Christ, the amount of followers that I have says different. I don't know why that many people follow me. I don't think I'm that kind of interesting. I mean,
that interview,
say that again.
That interview, that rap thing, that has been played so many times across YouTube. It's unbelievable.
I know. You wouldn't believe it when people meet me and they say, "Can I have a picture?" And I say, "Right, why?" They ask me, "We want to have the picture." I'm not gonna. You say, "Yeah, but we thought you were gonna kick off. We thought you were nuts and start going and go crazy." And I was just, I'm not seeing pound today, and you're not willing to take me into a car park and have a fight. So, like I say, don't be fooled. I'm not the way the media perceives me to be. I'm just a normal fella. I've kids who just enjoys having a fight. It's as simple as that. Or, getting paid to have a fight.
Absolutely. Tony Bellew, thank you so much for talking to Bellew TV. 2 years in the making. So many people ask me, get Tony Bellew. So, got Tony Bellew.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm pretty sure I'll speak to you guys again in the future.
Oh, I just remembered. Rocky, Creed. What's all that about? You thought I forgot.
The movie's all done now. It's coming out in November. It was a great experience. Something I'm very lucky to have done. Very grateful for doing. I couldn't explain to you how, why, when, where. We'd be here all night.
Yeah.
It's just an experience I'll never forget. Jesus Christ, man! I'm in a movie with Sylvester Stallone, Michael B. Jordan, directed by Ryan Coogler. It's nuts for a kid from Liverpool to be in a Rocky movie is just absolutely insane. So tune in, because listen, this director who's put this together, his name is Ryan Coogler. He made another amazing movie called Fruitvale Station. So if people want to see how good this director is, tune into a movie that he made called Fruitvale Station. It won a lot of different awards. It's a fantastic movie. Watch that. That's on various different outlets as well as iTunes. And then that should give you the flavour of what the kind of things this guy does, this Ryan Coogler. He's a great person, an amazing director. And if this movie is seen the way it's to be seen, it'll be one of the best boxing movies ever made. It really will. I mean, because I'm in it, because I'm the star of the movie, basically, Sylvester Stallone, Michael B. Jordan, but being part of it, seeing it on a day-to-day basis, it was something else. It really, really was.
Congratulations, Tony. Appreciate it. And thank you once again.
Thank you for having me.